What's up, everyone? This is your friendly neighborhood gamers. My name is Dylan Wren,
And I'm Andrew Kimball.
and today we are going to be talking about a game series that has revolutionized first-person shooters on consoles, Halo. Specifically, Halo Infinite. This is one of Xbox's big first-party exclusive games, one of the most iconic games of all time. And we are going to be jumping in and just kind of talking about the things that we've liked about Halo Infinite, maybe some things that we wish were different or that we didn't like, and then we are going to give it our verdict, our score. So, to start off with, Andrew, you're not the biggest Halo player. You've definitely played Halo. I know, because
Yeah.
you would come over to my house and we would play it.
Yeah.
But you were not like primarily a Halo player. That's been a more recent thing. So, what are some things that stood out to you in this game? What are some of the things that make this Halo something that you've enjoyed playing?
Yeah. Touching on what you said there for a second, Halo has always been kind of a casual thing for me. This is only the second Halo game I've played from start to finish. And I think the number one thing that jumps out to me when you ask, what are some things you liked about Halo Infinite? The grappling hook.
Mm-hmm.
That has got to be at the top of the list. I know it's something I hear come up on a lot of conversations about this game because it makes that open world gameplay so much faster and so much more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the grappling hook is definitely a great addition to this series. I know I continuously forget that I am not playing the campaign when I'm playing multiplayer and I'm trying to grapple around constantly, and I just don't always have it equipped.
Yeah.
So it is definitely it makes the open world like traversal a lot better, and there's a lot of just like utility in the grappling hook, just gameplay wise. Like you can grapple to enemies, you can pick up guns, you can pick up fusion coils, all that kind of stuff. You can grapple onto vehicles and like hijack them and stuff. So there's a ton that you can do, in addition to kind of just like swinging around like Spider-Man. So
Yeah. I think this is probably the best game that I've played to do a grappling hook since Titanfall 2, and that's high praise.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, and I think that kind of touches on a little bit too of the sort of open world exploration part of this game, which is new for Halo. You know, all the previous Halos have been kind of your more traditional first person shooter. Here's a level, you go through it, big set piece moments happen, and you know it's more of a linear type progression. You know, occasionally you'd have some of the bigger Halo levels where you could, you know, drive a warthog around a bunch of different areas on like one sort of massive level, but it was all kind of a self-contained. Still, you know, it had a few different routes you could take, but it was still fairly linear and small. And this game, they really kind of opened up Halo and just kind of drop you into this sort of massive world where you can go and run around and do a bunch of stuff. And the grappling hook definitely helps with that. But I was trying to think of a way to describe it other than just like, you know, sci-fi Halo or sci-fi Far Cry, you know, because it really did kind of feel like not as maybe cluttered and repetitive as a lot of Ubisoft open world games to me. But it did feel like a kind of spin on some of that, where it's like, hey, here's this huge map. Here are, you know, some communications towers that you can take down. Here are some bases that you can take over. Here are some big enemy strongholds that you can attack and take down. And so there were a lot of cool little areas and parts of that really scratched that sort of open world itch for me. and gave me that exploration, but didn't maybe overstay their welcome, like some Ubisoft games where it's just so much on the map, you know?
Right. It was one of those open worlds that kind of reminded me of Arkham City, where the world was small enough that getting from one point to another just by grappling or walking or running or driving a vehicle never felt like too much of a chore. Whereas some open world games really fall into that trap of being too big. I think that the Halo world really kind of, they treaded that line pretty well on the size of the world, the activities, and then most of the story missions being that kind of classic linear Halo structure that you're used to.
Yeah. And I don't know what you thought about the campaign, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really cool story. You know, those campaign levels that it strings together. It does kind of walk that line between, some of them are part of sort of the big open world, and then others are like they'll take you down underground, or they'll take you into a facility, and it is a little bit more closed off, a little bit more linear, which is fine. But I enjoyed the story. I thought it was really cool. As someone who's been playing Halo since 2001, I do enjoy the story. I do enjoy a lot of the characters and things that are going on. The last couple, like Halo 4 and 5, have not been the strongest, in my opinion, but I felt like this one actually was kind of getting back to being really solid, really strong. Like there were a lot of cool story things going on with the Chief and the weapon, Echo 216, which, spoilers, you'll find out his name at the end of the game. but yeah, so what did you think of the story? I know you haven't made it through a lot of the older ones.
As someone who isn't really, like, you've been playing Halo since the beginning, as someone who's been playing Halo since 2021, the story was kind of a lot to jump into. I liked the local story of Chief and his just like two companions against the world, bringing down the Banished, one outpost at a time. Master Chief is the epitome of a badass. I loved his character in this game. And that kind of more local story, I really dug. The grander stuff going on with Cortana, picking up from the previous games that I haven't played, that was a little bit deep for me. And by the end, I mean, I got the gist of it, but I think there was a lot of emotion that was meant to be there that kind of went over my head.
Yeah, for sure. Because that is something, and we'll get into it a little bit in the things maybe that we didn't like or wish were different. But yeah, the story does just kind of drop you in. I know there was a lot of talk with like Gears of War 5, where they felt, at least everything that I heard, made it sound like they did a very good job of catching you up with sort of the story and getting you to a place where you could start. Whereas this one definitely felt like it just kind of dropped you in and was like, here you go.
Yeah.
Like, and you're right. I think by the end of it, like you kind of figure out what all is going on. And even as someone who has played a lot of the Halo stuff and has followed all of the story, I too jumped in and was like, did I forget how Halo 5 ended? Am I
Right.
missing something here? But by the end of it, they kind of explained everything, and it ended up being a really cool story. But I agree. I think it does get a little deep there. We've talked a lot about the single player. Let's briefly touch on the multiplayer. Too, because I know that was another big thing that we both thought was pretty cool, was just kind of the surprise drop of the multiplayer.
Yeah.
They called it a multiplayer beta. It was basically just the full thing that was ready to go.
Yeah,
exactly. Just released a few weeks early. But that was really cool, I think, moment just in the gaming sphere of, like a ton of people that I haven't seen online in years were all of a sudden online playing Halo. We were all playing it together. So it was they kind of announced for Xbox's like 20th anniversary and Halo's like 20th anniversary, like, hey, you can play now. And so that was just kind of a really cool moment in gaming, I guess, for me. And just kind of touching on the multiplayer, like I love the feel of Halo multiplayer. I love that you're not just, it's not another Call of Duty or Battlefield where you're getting
Right.
killed in 3 shots by any gun anyway. I love that there's like a little bit more skill involved, because you actually have to take down shields and then hit a headshot, and you can't just
Right.
camp and spawn kill a bunch of people. You have to like they get a chance to retaliate, so you have to be good enough to like kill them anyway. And it feels like old school Halo, but updated, like it just in general, a more modernized version of that, which I really love. So what about your thoughts, Andrew?
Yeah, I've been loving the multiplayer. That is the more so than maybe any other first person shooter. Halo is that 50-50 marriage of campaign and multiplayer. So multiplayer was crucial for this game, and I think that 343 nailed it. They did a great job. I think they're doing a really good job of listening to the community and tweaking things as they get feedback. I think that the fact that it launched a surprise launch and worked really well, crossplay was functional, the servers stayed up. Everything that they did in that little window was amazing, and basically what everybody hopes for from the launch of a game like this, and so few games lately seem to pull it off. And so it was really exciting when this happened. It caught all of us off guard, and yeah, like you said, it was just a really fun moment in gaming for one of the most anticipated games of the year to drop its multiplayer component. Was it 2 or 3 weeks early? And then it works and everybody can play it and have a good time. Yeah, it was fantastic. Good job, 343.
Exactly. Well, that was a lot of sort of gushing about the things that we did like about this game. And I think overall we both are very positive on this game. But there's, call it what you want, negative things that we didn't like.
There's always room for improvement,
Exactly. Some constructive criticism. Just, besides The Witcher 3 for you, I don't know if there's ever a perfect game.
And I could still nitpick that one if I had to.
Exactly. So there's, always things that we wish they could maybe do differently or do better. What were some of those things for you?
Yeah, so like you said, we're both pretty high on this game. Honestly, there's no glaring problems with this game as far as I see it, coming from my background with the series and what I went into this game expecting and what I got out of it. The few things that I did think of was, some of the missions in the campaign did start to feel repetitive. They kind of dragged out. I felt like there were a few rooms full of enemies, maybe 2 or 3 too many towards the end. And that's, the game is a shooter. The core gameplay loop is you are going through, you're killing enemies, and you're going to run out of ammo, and you're going to have to improvise. And it's a really fun loop, but a little bit more variety, I think, could have gone a long way for me. We already touched on it, but the story and how it really wasn't very welcome to newcomers. That would have been nice to see if they had done a little bit more onboarding or a little bit of a better job catching people up. Even if it was outside of the campaign itself, if the game had a previously on Halo before you jump into it, that would have been, pretty welcome for me. And then shifting to the multiplayer, the multiplayer is great and it works great, but it does feel like there's a pretty low number of maps at this point, and a little bit more control in what you want to play would be cool. Like, I'd love to never play Capture the Flag again. I know that might be blasphemy in Halo circles, but it's just not my favorite game mode. And so, like, if I could if I could just turn that off when I jump into multiplayer or something like that. So just little things like that, which definitely are not deal breakers. And honestly, it probably kind of sounds like I'm reaching here, because ultimately this is a really solid game. I mean, there's not that much to pick apart.
Yeah, no, and I feel the same way. Some of the missions like you said, do get a little slow. They do drag a little bit. I can think of a couple just off the top of my head where it was just kind of like you'd be in this facility or in this room, and then it would be like sort of, okay, now fight these enemies that they dump at you, and then okay, now go to another very similar room where they attack with another wave of enemies. And there were several times where that kind of happened, where it did just kind of feel like, okay, like, can we get to the next part of the story? Overall, I mean, like, it wasn't super, like, I still enjoyed my time with it. I will say that as a longtime Halo player, the hunters in this game are very, very rough, to the point where it almost feels like maybe they were designed to be attacked in co-op, where one person can kind of grab their attention and then the others can go kind of behind their backs and attack their weak points and stuff, because fighting two at once as a solo player was always just kind of like, I'm gonna die like 3 or 4 times here, it's gonna be annoying.
That is a good point. That is one thing that we haven't touched on, is the fact that this game launched without co-op in the campaign, which does feel like a bit of a bummer. You know, they've said it is coming, but yeah, like you said, it would have been a lot of fun, even if it wasn't our first playthrough, but maybe if you and I wanted to go through and do some missions together, that could have been a lot of fun, and that's just not there yet.
Yeah, and hopefully that'll be coming. And if you're listening to this in like May of 2022, as of right now, I think it'll be out. So, you know, this part will kind of age, but yeah, the joy of sitting down, booting up the new Halo and playing through the campaign co-op, like as your first playthrough, is not there, and that is kind of a little bit of a bummer. Another thing to me, as somebody who's played Halo for a long time, the vehicles felt very squishy to me. They felt like, and maybe it's just the number of enemies that are shooting at you or something, but it felt like you would get in them, and in previous games I felt like they could take more of a beating before they would explode. Whereas in this game, it feels like if you're part of the fun of getting in a Warthog and just kind of driving through the enemies and having your gunner kind of shoot a bunch of enemies and stuff is lost when you have to kind of inch your way slowly forward, taking out enemies in front of you, because if you just charge in, there's a really good likelihood that you're just going to get annihilated, which, you know, feels weird to me anyway. There were a lot of cool new guns. Not all of them really felt good to me. I tended to stick to a lot of the older
tried and true
weapons. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe I'm just not using them correctly, but they did feel kind of weird. But I guess the biggest thing that I wish was different was just a lot of the community seems, I don't know if it's just cool to hate on something or what, but there seems to be a very vocal part of the community that's just complaining about everything.
No, you don't say.
I know this is the part where we kind of list the things we wish were different as well, but you know, there's a lot of like hate about the battle pass and about the pricing system and everything, where it's just kind of like, this is a free multiplayer game, like they have to make money. I've put in hundreds of hours to Halo over the years without any sort of cosmetics at all, and I'm just having fun playing. So yeah, for an optional cosmetic thing, I feel like there's a lot of just sort of vitriol and hate being thrown at 343 for what I think is a great game and a lot of fun. And so that's part that I wish was different, because, you know, in years past you'd hear nothing but I don't know, I feel like I would just hear good things about like, oh yeah, the new Halo, it's so fun and awesome, you know, versus now where it's like sort of tempered with like, Bungie's or 343 is just so greedy. They're selling this armor for $20 or whatever, and it's just like, I don't care. But
Well, that's our job, Dylan, is to try to focus on the positivity. Try to
exactly.
we'll try to leave the vitriol on the other side of the internet, and you can come here for the two dudes who just love to talk about how fun this game is.
Exactly. So that's a good segue into, I think, our final verdicts on the game. So we're going to give this game a rating, you know, A through F, with S kind of being the masterpiece of a game. So on that scale, what would you give this game, Andrew?
This game for me is a very strong B plus. It's borderline A. It doesn't quite hit there for me. Like I said, I feel like just a little bit of the repetitive nature of it, and feeling like I was jumping into the back half of a story that, you know, I didn't know that much about. And then the few little tweaks I mentioned about the multiplayer, just, you know, how it's super fun at its core, but a little bit more variety and a little bit more options in there would go a long way. With all that being said, though, like, this game is a blast. The multiplayer is free. The campaign is on Game Pass. It's solid. The characters are great. The core kind of, I guess, familial story of the three characters that you're dealing with in that story is a lot of fun. And just the moment-to-moment gameplay, the loop of this Halo game is just fantastic. It's punchy. It feels fun. The grappling hook is a fantastic addition, and I had a really great time with it.
Yeah. Similarly to you, I would give this game an A. As a longtime Halo fan, this game definitely still feels like Halo, but it also feels modern. And so I think it's amazing, and, you know, props to 343 for being able to pull that off, you know, being able to take something and make it feel like a game from 2001 but also a game from 2021. The story I thought was great, more engaging than the last couple of games for me. I like the foray into the open world. The multiplayer is a ton of fun, and it's free, and if you have Game Pass, the campaign is free too. And so it's an A for me. So check it out. So hopefully you found this little quick review helpful. If you did, go ahead, give us a like, subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to hear more in-depth thoughts about this game, or, you know, some other games that you might find on our channel, check out our podcast, Your Friendly Neighborhood Gamers, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We also stream on Twitch every Friday at neighborhood_gamers. And as we leave you, we just want to remind you,
Stay friendly, gamers.